Hit the like button, subscribe.
Defense wins championships, everybody.
HAIRitage Sports Talk is an engaging and insightful podcast that dives deep into the world of sports from the perspective of a barbershop discussion.
Good evening. Welcome to HAIRitage Sports Talk, where we talk about everything on the outside, everything on the inside, and definitely everything in the cut. This is a special one today, but I'm going to bring the fellas in, and we're going to get this one started. Ladies and gentlemen, first up is my right-hand man. It's always a pleasure seeing my guy. He's a sports enthusiast. He's a journalist, Mr. T. Hart.
What's happening, Rodney Legendary Brown? Yes, man, it is great to be here for this special occasion. This is a special event, and hey, we about to bring it to y'all today.
Next up, it's your guys, my guys, everybody's guys, our number one Raiders fan, Mr. EL, Mr. Elijah Lewis. Elijah, what's going on, man?
Nothing much. Another day in paradise. Can't complain.
We talk about all type of different sports. We just don't talk about the big four, baseball, basketball, football, hockey, and all that things, though we do talk about it. But we also talk about motorsports. So we were able and lucky enough to have the pleasure, the honor to get a special guest on here tonight. And this guy has been in the game of motorsports from the day he was born. So let me introduce to you Willy T. Ribbs, who was born in 1955. He's a pioneering American race car driver. He's best known as the first African-American to test a Formula One car in 1985 and qualify for the Indianapolis 500 twice in 1991 and 1993. Over his 25-year career, he has won 17 Trans Am races and 10 IMSA GTO races. I love that part too. And often overcoming significant racial barriers. We're going to sit here and have this conversation with this special guy during Black History Month, Mr. Willy T. Ribbs. Mr. Willy T. Ribbs, how you doing this evening?
Well, I've got a pulse, so I'm ticking, and I hear you're getting a lot of rain out there in California.
Yes. Yes, and I think it's going to be about another couple days of it. As you know, you've been around this area, the Sacramento region, going up into the Sierra Mountains. They've been hit with a lot of snow. They've been closing down the highways. But I think everybody, we just bless them and pray that everyone's going to be safe to get to wherever they're going around, this part of Northern California.
Yeah, I've been over the mountain on 80 many times. And one time, once I was going through there in the snow, and a lot of people were stopping to put chains on. I thought it was more fun without chains. So
no, I don't think they'll let you roll around there like that anymore. Maybe back in the day, but
days, there weren't as many cars, but I could go down, I could let it go sideways down the hill about 80 miles per hour and just slide down the hill about 80 and just, like you're out on a rally track in the mountains.
So I would say that's by instinct coming from a motorsports driver.
Yeah, I don't think I feel safe doing that.
Well, I wouldn't let you do it.
Right.
I would watch you from outside the car, not inside.
Well, you know what? It's good to have you on here, and good to know that you are very familiar, with this area as well. I know we were talking backstage, before we came on, how you started in San Jose. I would say, before we get into that discussion, was your dad part of the Great Migration West? Is that how you ended up in California, or was he already here before then?
No, my grandfather came to California from Louisiana in 1921, and his father was very successful. My great grandfather Felix Beck, and he owned many thousands of acres of timberland that he built, one of his businesses was railroad ties, that he sold to the railroad. So one of his companies was the tie business and a railroad tie business. So because there was so much timber on his property, so my grandfather and his older brother, they were 20, 21 years old. They left Louisiana, and they lived near Shreveport, Monroe, Shreveport area. And they came out to California in 1921.
Really familiar with the Monroe, Shreveport, Grambling State University, all up in that area as well. So he ends up in Northern California, San Jose per se, Santa Clara County per se. And your dad, later on, when he grew up, he opened up a plumbing business. Is that correct?
No, my grandfather started Henry Ribbs Plumbing in 1927, and right before the Great Depression. And he survived. His business survived the depression, and then World War II kicked off in 1941. And my dad and my uncle went to war for the United States in World War II. When they came back, thousands and thousands of GIs were coming back from the Pacific, and California exploded, and business exploded. And my grandfather's business really, because of the building boom, really did very well. So well where my dad's hobby was racing motorcycles. And
that was my next question. Through all that, he was able to run the family business and get into type motorsports himself. Was it a motorcycle, or was it a racing car, or was it both at this time that he got into?
And my dad was young then, so my grandfather was still running the business. But my dad, on the weekends, he'd take off with his motorcycle buddies and go flat track racing, which is dirt track, short track, dirt track, flat track. And then my dad raced motorcycles for nearly 10 years before he got into cars. And his best friend, who was 8-time national champion, Joe Leonard, went from motorcycles because Leonard got him started on motorcycles, and then went to cars. And then my dad started racing cars as well. And the family had the money to buy race cars. And so that was my dad's hobby. Here I come along, and I'm born into that. And I didn't want it to be a hobby. I wanted to, by 9 years old, I knew I wanted to be a professional. And my dad had already started racing cars when I was about 5 or 6. So there was no doubt in my mind. I didn't want to work in the family business. I wanted to pursue a racing career.
So you knew early on this is something that you wanted to do, and it probably dawned on you around the time that you were 9 years old. When did you start becoming real competitive in the sport, Mr. Ribb?
Well, I got my racing license when I was 20 years old in the United States, and then a year later I went straight to England to start my racing career. I did not want to start my racing career in the United States. I wanted to start it in England and Europe because I knew my ultimate goal was Formula One. Well, the best way to be in Formula One is go over there and start your career there and make a name for yourself. And a lot of drivers did that. Emerson Fittipaldi, for example, from Brazil. He left Brazil, came to England, and eventually went to Formula One. Senna did the same thing. There's a ton of drivers that have left their countries to go to Europe and England in particular to start their career to become a Formula One driver. And that's
so you And I'm just, going by, your bio. You went to England at the age of 20. So you were really, really young, when you went over there. Is that correct? And you went to a racing school? Is that correct? And what's the name of that racing school?
It really is not they don't really teach you much. You go there, and the only reason you go through that school is so you can get your participation license. You go through a 3 or 5 day racing school course. And you go in the classroom, and they say, and they draw it on a blackboard. This is how you drive through a corner, and this is where you put on the brakes, and this is where you accelerate. Well, shit, I knew all that. My dad was I learned that from my dad and his racing buddies by the time I was 9 years old. So, but for people that, young guys and that were starting their racing career off that didn't come from a racing family, well, they, and they were all white boys anyway. So, you're in those guys, they're, taking notes down in class and drawing on a piece of paper the lines and breaking points. And the instructor knew my dad. He knew who my dad was, that my dad raced. And so after class, he was saying, he says, you really know what I'm talking about. I'm mainly doing this for those other guys.
Okay.
Right. Because the sport and your dad's in it, and you probably know more than me, which I did. So
you just went through the formalities. That's what it sounded like.
So once I got my license, then 9 months later, I was on a plane to England.
You said you want to start in Europe instead of the United States. Well, why you want to start across the pond instead of the United States? Because
Formula One was my goal. And, if I wanted to be a stock car driver or race Indy cars, I would have started here in the United States. But because I wanted to be in Formula One, I wanted to be exposed to that area where the Formula One teams were based, where the team owners and principals were based. And in my fourth race, I won my very first race. I finished third, and this wasn't Formula One. This is the championships below Formula One. This is the feeder series, right? It's like AAA ball, for example. In my very first race, I finished third. My second race, I won, and then my third race, I won. Well, the fourth race was at Brands Hatch, England, which was a very famous racetrack. And Bernie Ecclestone came to Brands Hatch to meet me. And when he walked up to me with his engineer, Gordon Murray, because Bernie's like 5'3" and Murray is like 6'1" or 2. He walks up and says, "Hi, Willy, I'm Bernie Ecclestone." I said, "Oh, I know who the hell you are." And he says, "You're doing quite well, and we're watching you, and keep up the good work." Those words were worth the whole trip right there. Those words coming from Bernie Ecclestone, who not only owned the Formula One team at the time, but was running Formula One. Bernie Ecclestone built Formula One to what it is today. He sold it to Liberty Media 10 years ago. But if it wasn't for Bernie, Formula One would not be what it is. And so I kept winning. I won my first championship in my first season there. And
that probably would have been what? 1977, 1978. I'm seeing a Dunlap Formula Ford championship here.
Yeah, 1977.
Incredible. And I'm sure that you stayed over there for a few years. When did you decide that you wanted to come back to the States?
I came back because my parents said, hey, we got, you got a couple of sisters and brothers that we have to put through college, and you're not going to spend up all their college money. So I had to get on the plane and come back, and then eventually I met a wealthy motel owner by the name of Jim Truman, and he supported me, and he sponsored me in Formula Atlantic, which I ended up, my best event was Long Beach in 1982, where I was on the pole. I got pole position there. And in that race was Michael Andretti and Al Unser Jr. and Jeff Brabham and Marino, and the best young drivers in the country in that race. And I was on pole position, and it was sort of, that was the real eye opener. And it got me, it led to me getting a phone call to race Trans Am championship for a Budweiser team, which was very well funded, and it was a winning team. And that's what it takes as a driver. If you don't, you can be the greatest driver in the world, but if you don't have the greatest components to match, along with the R&D staff and the engineers and the best minds, you're not going to win.
I was always wondering, what series did you feel was the toughest to compete in, and which one had like the best drivers that you went against that really pushed you to the edge? Like, yo, these guys are good. I'm gonna have to dig deep. What was that series for you?
Each time you get in the race car, you dig deep. Just to get the best out of the car, and not to just get the best out of yourself, but to understand what that race car is doing. You have to drive it as hard as it will go, because you don't know if you drive it, for example, 50% or 75 or 80%, you really don't know what to tell the engineers. And another great decision for that I learned and that I gained from going to England was learning how to test. And what I learned in 1 year would have taken me 5 years to learn in the United States. But the team I was racing for in England, the designer of the car was Rory Byrne, a South African who ended up designing the Ferrari that Michael Schumacher won 5 world championships in. 5 world championships. Well, before Rory Byrne went to Ferrari, he was the designer and builder or designer of the Formula Ford I was racing, the Royale. So after my 4th race, the buzz in England was, who's this black guy from the United States who's winning straight away? And he's very fast. So and news traveled fast. I got a call from Rory Byrne, and out of nowhere, and he says, we're going to do a test session at Brands Hatch for 2 days, and I'd like to invite you to test for us. Well, I mean, that's the phone call of a lifetime. So I said, yeah, I would love to do it. So we tested for 2 days, and what he taught me in 2 days on how to test, on what to look for in a race car. You just don't. The first thing as a driver that you want out of that race car is, and you make demands. You make demands of the car. You make demands of not just the horsepower, but you demand the front end to do what you want. You demand the back end to do what you want. And so your demand, and it's all through cornering. All right, what's this car And what Rory taught me is to understand what that car is doing almost immediately in 2 or 3 laps. So he would make a change to one end of the car, and then he would make a change, and then he would say, go back out. And then when you come in, tell me what that change did. He's taking notes, and I'm describing what the change did. And it would show up on the stopwatch. That means we were faster. Well, there's a reason why we're faster. And so you had to debrief on, this is what the car did, this is why we're faster. So then he'd go out and make another change and send me out. And he wanted me to do it all in 3 to 5 laps. If it's a cold day, the tires don't heat up as fast. So, you might take a few 2 or 3 laps longer to get the tires to come up to temperature so the car would work good. But if it was a average, a medium warm day, in 2 laps you should know. And that's what I learned. So when I brought that knowledge back to the United States, it was invaluable. And it helped me go win straight away and be fast straight away.
Out of all the car series that you were running, what was your greatest? Because watching some of the video of you driving these cars, it's just, to me, seems seamless, because you're one of the greatest and you're just behind a wheel. But which one of those, after you drove NASCAR, Truck Series, you drove Trans Am, you drove Formula One, what's your favorite? I think you're going to say Formula One, but I want to know why.
I didn't have one. You fall in love with women, not with cars. And I fell in love with racing. Racing is what I enjoy the most. I didn't really care about what car I was driving. Of course, I mean, as far as the state of the art car, it was the Formula One car. And then after that, it was the Indy car. But, I didn't really get a turn on from just driving. I got a turn on from racing people. I love to race. And that was the biggest turn on. But, if you were to say, well, what car was the most technical car? Well, of course, it was a Formula One car. Or what car had the most power? Then I would have to say, the Formula One and the IndyCar both. Because at that time, that Brabham BMW I tested made 1,100 horsepower, and the car weighed less than 1,000 pounds. So wow. it would when you put the power down, it would you knew you had some grunt. And same with the IndyCar. When you're running 230 miles per hour, and that's what we had run, top speed at Indy was 231, and you're cornering it about 215 cornering speed. That'll get your attention.
Look, how many race cars might be out there on that racetrack there, Mr. Riz, at any time that you were racing?
Well, at Indy, it's always 33. No more than 33 cars. On average, from 25 to 35. Now the endurance races like the Daytona 24-hour, which I did when I was racing for Dan Gurney, it was part of the IMSA championship. That Daytona 24-hour race, they were running 50 cars, I think. But it was a big, long track, and you could, fit 50 cars in there pretty comfortably. But and I hated doing that 24-hour race. I absolutely hated it. But contractually, I had to do it because I was racing, for the Dan Gurney's team, and we were racing for a championship. So, but man, the racing to me, I've always liked 3 to 5 hours, no more than that. 3 to 5 hours, 5 hours max, but 12 or 24 hours. And the reason I didn't like it is 2 times we were out in front by more than an hour. And right towards the end, we'd have a mechanical failure. So you spend that much time and you're out in front and something mechanically goes wrong. And that's the toughest part.
I was in a barbershop today and I had a client and we were talking and he brought up Michael Jordan's team, his racing team that just recently won the Daytona 500. And I had an opportunity to let him know that we had the opportunity as a team of HAIRitage Sports Talk to be able to discuss and have a conversation with you today. And one of the things that he was wondering was like the difference between when you first started and being one of the first, if not the first, how does it feel to see him sitting in the position that he's sitting in now with his team winning the Daytona 500 compared to back in earlier in the days of racing when we weren't really noticed back then?
Well, if it wasn't for Bill Cosby, I would have never been in Indy 500. It was Bill Cosby support, despite my success of all the victories I had leading up to me going to Indy cars. Roger Penske, Chip Ganassi, none of the team owners gave me a shot. None of them. And I was a winning race driver. And they're all looking for winning. All the team owners are always looking for winning race drivers. They didn't. And Bill Cosby knew it. Cosby wasn't into racing. He didn't watch it at all. But he liked what I was doing. He told me, he says, don't ask me to go to the races. I don't like racing, but I like what you're doing. And I'm going to support it because if I don't, you might not ever get to where you want to go. So he put up his money and put me not only in Indy 500, but he put me in the IndyCar championship to compete against the best guys in the world. And in IndyCar, and Nigel Mansell, who I raced against in England, and Mario Andretti, Alan Sir Jr., who I'm very close friends with now, Michael Andretti, Emerson Fittipaldi. There was just a lot of drive. It was the top, it was the big league, and Bill put me there. The sad part, and the saddest part is there were many African Americans in the United States at that time that had the resources to support what we were doing. That Bill really needed to support him. One person couldn't, he could do it, but if he had other African American successful people to join him, we would have been even stronger. Well, none of that happened. But fast forward to Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan's a billionaire. Michael Jordan, and not just a billionaire, he's a smart guy. He's very smart. He's very successful. And Michael Jordan could buy NASCAR. Okay, he could buy, he can reach into his pocket and buy NASCAR. And Michael was willing to put up the best of everything for his drivers to win. This kid, Reddick, won on Sunday at Daytona. And Wallace, they all have the best equipment, right? because Michael is there to win, and he doesn't care about making it. The only statement he cares about, forget about the historical part of it. He doesn't care about that. Michael Jordan wants to win, and
Right.
and that's all that matters. When I was racing, that was almost 40 years ago when I was doing it, as opposed to it was 35 years ago when I was racing to now. A lot has changed, and Jordan is one heavy cat when it comes to winning. He is ruthless, and that's the mindset you have to be and have to be in racing. You whatever it takes to win.
From all the systematic racism, death threats, and all the isolation of being a black driver in a predominantly white sport, I don't know if you know this, but of lately, especially in 2024, they pretty much compare you to Jackie Robinson, or what he did for baseball is what you did for motorsports.
But I thought they were fun. I loved them. I loved getting the death threats. Me and my cousin Donnie played for the Bengals, and Donnie's a really big guy, 6'5", at 275, played tight end. And when Donnie quit playing football, he went on tour with me. And so when I was racing, they didn't have any of this. There was no texts and emails and all that when I was racing. If you got death threats, they were by phone or you got a letter. So we'd read the letters and have a beer while we were reading the letters. And they were fun as hell to read because most of them couldn't spell cat if you spotted CA, right? They couldn't, and one letter said Nagger, Nagger, Nagger. And I thought, damn, do I nag people? And so
Sound like some illiterate people.
yeah, and what they were going to do, and I was thinking, these guys really don't know who they're threatening, because one thing about my family, my grandfather, it was mandatory for us to be shooters in the family. So you went up, even the girls, you had to be a good shooter, not just shoot a standing target. You had to shoot moving targets, right, at speed. And I thought, do these guys really know who they're threatening? Because they can't outshoot me. And as a matter of fact, my son Theo Ribbs is one of the top shooters in the world right now. You can Google Theo Ribbs, and in fact, he's on Team USA.
Okay.
Yeah. So shooting has been that was actually my hobby. If I wasn't racing, all the drivers wanted to go play golf. I said, that doesn't make enough noise, I want to hear a woman screaming or a shotgun or a racing engine. I want to hear noise. So my hobby was in the off season was shooting, and that's how my son got into it. But I was raised to be a shooter, and that's why none of those death threats affected me at all. They were funny to read. They were hilarious and reading death threats. And I kept, and if I didn't get them, I was like pissed. I was like, damn, they're starting to like me now.
Oh, man.
Coming from that era and now seeing the transition of the sport now, again, we're talking about Michael Jordan's team. Do you feel a sense of proudness of how far it's came? That's part one. And then two, speaking of, again, like MJ and any of these other drivers, have any of them reached out to you for insight, tutelage, or again, just to pick your brain?
No, no. And actually they don't, of course they know who I am, but
Correct.
I'm not, and I'm not going to, if I'm asked, I will respond, but I'm not going to try to muscle my way in as if I know what direction they should go. I'm not going to do that. And when I first heard about, and when Michael came in to NASCAR, I was getting calls from the media. Well, what do you think? What do you think of Michael Jordan? I think that he's a guy that's serious, and if he's serious, he will be successful. But he's going to have to spend money, and if it's not his money, someone else's. But it's just you just got to be patient and get the best people and the best of everything. You cannot do it on the cheap. You got to get the best in minds and best engineers and best designers. Everyone's got to be the best, and he'll do it. And he did it. You know, in fairness, Wendell Scott won a dirt race in Jacksonville, Mississippi. It was 100. It was a Saturday night race. It wasn't a big race, but Wendell Scott is actually the first driver and owner to win a NASCAR race, technically. He's first.
Wow.
Because he won it in his car, which he owned and drove. So technically he's the first, and the second is Kevin Doherty.
Real quick,
Kevin Doherty won the 500 2 years ago.
how hard is that to be an owner operator, and then like in that time frame that Wendell Scott won?
Oh, it was nearly impossible.
Gotcha.
They were trying to put him in the fence every lap. Right. He had virtually everything he had was third and fourth hand equipment. All right. And sure, it wasn't a Daytona 500 or a major NASCAR race, but it was still technically a NASCAR race. It was a 100 lap dirt race on a quarter-mile track, half-mile. It wasn't a half-mile, but he did it. And but in those days, that's why I didn't want to start my career in the United States, because I knew if I went to Europe and England, if I was good, they were going to give me the best. They were going to give me what it took to win. That's all they care about over there. And they did. And the team I raced for in England, I ran out of money halfway through the season. And he said, well, you're leading the championship. He said, well, we can't stop now. And so he says, just don't crash. Don't cost me any money with crash damage, and we'll keep racing.
What was your racing number? Because Wendell Scott was 34, and I just switched from 24, which was Willie Mays' number. Now I'm using 34, but I want to know what your number is so I can use it in the future as well.
I had several different numbers. When I raced for Dan Gurney, it was 99. When I raced for Roush, it was 3. 64 1 year, 3 1 year. When I was in Indy 500, my first year was number 17.
Number 17.
17 was the year I qualified for Indy and made history, and it was number 17.
Okay.
my second time at Indy, car number was 75. So I had several different numbers.
Okay.
But I was not exclusive to any one number.
We always talk about, systematic racism here in America, but there's always somebody white who see what you're doing and they want to try to help you out. I'll give you an example. Ted Williams knew those Negro baseball players should have been playing at the time he should have been playing, but he did make a statement which led them to opening up, the record books, them getting into the Hall of Fame, later on, a few years, I think, before he had passed away. Who was out there? They didn't have to be white. I mean, just non-black person that, really became friend and understood what you were doing and trying to help you get through this process in motorsports.
I had several. Jim Truman was the guy that just really made it possible for me to do well enough and Paul Newman and Paul Jim Truman, Paul Newman probably were the guys that put me in position for Dan Gurney to see me or Bill Cosby to call me. Those Truman and Newman, and Paul Newman had a lot of power, and being a Hollywood star that he was, and he loved racing, and he really didn't get any pushback. No one sort of, called him the in lover for doing what he was doing because Paul was a tough guy. He didn't take any shit, and nor did Jim Truman. So, but those were the guys. Those were the guys who had my back with their wallet. Right.
Okay.
Right. Truman
right.
Spent a lot of money, and Paul didn't spend any money. He just used his muscle, his
muscle.
This one's probably for my wife and a lot of inquiring people that want to know this one. All right. If anybody here watches the Proud Family, and I am an avid watcher, the school that the kids go to is actually named after Willie.
Yes.
And the mascot is Racer. How do you feel about this? And has Disney reached out to you about anything else like that? And how do you like being a part of history where kids are growing up knowing that Penny is going to your school?
When I got the call from Disney, they said there were several names they were looking at, sport, high profile names that they were considering naming the school. And they asked me would I have a problem with it. And I told them that as long as the kids get good grades. So they said, well, they're going to get good grades. So yeah, I didn't. It was I was proud that they thought of using my name, and I still get people mentioning it to this day.
For me, I'm a big music head. It gets me in my zone and calms me down, sometimes amps me up. What are the artists back then? Like, did you have like a pre-listening routine before you jumped in the car and started riding, like racing? And if so, what was your go-to track?
I didn't really. I had several friends in jazz.
Okay.
Freddie Hubbard and I were very good friends. Ron Carter and I, or Ron's damn near 90, and Ron and I are good friends to this day. I was mainly into jazz. Phyllis Hyman and I were very close when I was racing. Yeah, there was Miles Davis, Herbie Hancock, a lot of the musicians that I love listening to, I became friends with, and so it was. I really didn't listen to any particular tune before I got in the race car. Of course, when I was in the race car, I would listen to jazz wherever I was traveling. But it was, once I wasn't at the track, I'd go to see them play and go backstage and tell racing stories.
Yeah.
NFL, they have their groupies, basketball, NBA. Is there a such thing as NASCAR groupies too? Don't tell me if you encountered them though. I don't want you to get in trouble. You ain't got to tell me that part. I just want to know if they exist.
My wife still calls me a tramp to this.
Hey,
So they were groupies.
you had a real. She understood.
And not just NASCAR, but IndyCar, Formula One. It was a lot of fun, but you had to keep it. You had to manage it. You had to keep it under control. If you let it get out of control, you'd never make it to the racetrack. I mean, there was weekends where I was hitting it all night. And yeah, I mean, literally all night. And had to put my clothes on and go race that day.
Mr. Willie, we're gonna save that one. We're gonna save that one for off the camera. We're gonna talk about that one when this ain't recording. We gonna go deeper. I'm now.
Oh, we getting in the weeds now.
I'm nephew. So when nephew hit you up, when nephew DSP say, Uncle Willie, hey, holler at me, tell me. Don't worry about it. No cameras rolling though. I got it.
Where do you see the technical forefront of IndyCar going? And also, where do you see the technical front of Formula One going? We see in Formula One, they just changed formulas and how they power from the ICE motor and the electrical hybrid motor. But where do you see it going for the future?
Everything is going to follow Formula One. Formula One is on another planet. You cannot believe how much farther they're advanced than IndyCar. IndyCar is going to transition to a smaller chassis like Formula One. Formula One cars now lighter and smaller chassis, and they're actually faster now because of the power units they have, both fuel and electrical. I mean, the electrical part, and if you ever driven an electric vehicle, they accelerate real fast, like that Tesla. They accelerate real fast. That extra boost that they get from the electric power is launching them off. I mean, you can visibly see it from the in-car camera. I was watching testing, and normally they spool up, in the old days. Now they're launching off the corner like rocket ships. IndyCar is going to adopt a similar formula. Everything follows Formula One's lead. All the technology, Formula One is is pretty much carbon neutral now. They're all going to go in that direction. Formula One is the leader of the pack.
Mr. Ribbs, I want to thank you. And I do want to say this. It's a pleasure. It's an honor. It's definitely something that is needed. And I'm glad we were able to sit down and have this conversation. I'm not even calling it an interview. It's a conversation. I'm glad we were all able to sit down and have this conversation with you because you are a part of history. and the history that you bring is something that younger ones need to see, something that younger minorities and younger blacks need to understand, that anything that you have in mind that you want to do in life, you can do it. Any last words?
Well, I would, have a goal and set and have in that goal, have your ultimate destination, right? You know where you want to go. It's like if you wanted to go to the moon, all right, there's the moon. Now, how do I get there? What do I need to do to get there? And approach it that way, whether it's racing and as far as motorsports is concerned, the more people, Michael Jordan is a classic example of it can be done. Okay, he did it, all right. But more individuals like Michael Jordan. There's been talk that LeBron James is going to come in and challenge Michael Jordan in NASCAR. Although that would be awesome if that happened. If LeBron James started his own team and a team owner, and that would be fabulous for the sport. Best thing that ever happened. But personally, I'd like to see Michael Jordan do Formula One. He's a worldwide brand. Yes. Formula One is worldwide. Michael Jordan is worldwide. And many in the media have asked me, well, what do you think about Jordan in racing? I think Formula One is where Jordan, because he's such a worldwide figure and worldwide brand, that's the natural place he should be in motorsports. I hope he decides to do it.
That'll be great. That'll be great. Well, this is HAIRitage Sports Talk. This is a special one. It is Black History Month, and we are bringing some Black history to you. This is where we talk about everything on outside, everything on the inside, and definitely everything in the cut. Speed, I want to thank you for joining us. Mr. Leonard Brown, always appreciate it. Tone, you already know. Word up. Elijah, appreciate you, man. I love the question because a lot of people didn't know that. And Mr. Willy T. Ribs, we honor you and we salute you, sir. Congratulations on the thing that you put forward.
Let's get together a year from now.